Welcome to the Culinary Institute of America. I'm Chef Instructor Bill Briwa, and today I'd like to share with you a very special ham. I have it here. This is a Prosciutto di San Daniele. It's a prosciutto that's been made in exactly the same traditional method for the last 2,000 years. The Celts made it 2,000 years ago in the area of San Daniele, which is in northern Italy. Now, what they will tell you is that there's 3 ingredients that make this ham so special. The first is the pork itself, the second is the sea salt that's used to cure it, and the third is the environment. The cold mountain airs tempered by the breezes from the Adriatic create the perfect microclimate to generate a ham with this much complexity and this much delicate flavor. Now, before it goes to market, it is inspected, and having been inspected, you will find a firebrand that identifies it, and you can see it right here on this ham, Prosciutto di San Daniele, which is proof positive that you're getting a ham that has a protected denomination of origin. It comes to you aged a minimum of 13 months, and what I've done is I've trimmed away the skin. I've gotten back to the white fat. Any fat that was oxidized, I've trimmed off. And I'm going to use this great ham to make a really simple salad pop. So let's get started. Now, in my kitchen, whenever I use something like butternut squash or acorn squash, typically there's a little bit of that squash left over, and either I leave it in the refrigerator until it rots and then I throw it away, or I make a decision to do something with it right away. What I love to do with it is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put it onto a tray. I'm going to dress it with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then a few herbs and garlic, and pop it into the oven to roast. So, olive oil, salt to balance out the sweetness of the squash, and a little bit of pepper. And what I'm going to do with this is make a salad from it. Here's just some branches of fresh thyme. This doesn't have to take very long. Branches of fresh thyme, and I've got some garlic that's sliced up, and I'll sprinkle that on as well. And I would roast this at about 375. What I'm looking for is this to get tender, and I'm looking for it to begin to brown a little bit, caramelize so that it gets a depth of flavor. But let me pop that into the oven. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with tomatoes. I've got Roma tomatoes here, and typically when there's squash, the tomatoes have already sort of moved beyond their peak season. So rather than use these tomatoes raw, what I want to do is cook them so that they become a little bit jammy and concentrated, better than they would be if they were raw. But the dressing is going to be exactly the same. I'm going to add some olive oil and sprinkle on garlic, sliced garlic. The only thing that's going to distinguish this from the squash is that while I roast the squash pretty hot, these tomatoes I want to cook kind of gently so that they don't brown too much. There's a lot of sugar in these. In effect, what I'm making is oven-dried tomatoes, but if you have sun-dried tomatoes in your pantry already, you could even use those. These I would put into an oven probably around 275 or 300 degrees, and they'll take about an hour. All right. Once they are done, this is what you can expect. So I have here the squash. It's nicely browned. It's got some caramel flavors. It's got the savory flavor of the thyme, the whole branches. And then here the tomatoes, jammy and sun-dried or oven-dried. So I'll set those aside. Now, I want to make a salad from those ingredients. And our salad is going to require a dressing. And so we might as well knock that out right now. In goes some diced shallots. In goes, and I think of this as a rustic salad, so in goes some whole grain mustard. I'm going to add some red wine vinegar and sort of allow those shallots to macerate just a little bit. And then finally, I'm going to stir in some olive oil. A nice punchy olive oil is the order of the day. Something with a little backbone so that it can stand up to some pretty big flavors. For me, when I'm using a really good olive oil, I usually use about 5 times as much oil as vinegar. 4 or 5 times as much. Okay. And salt and pepper goes into the vinaigrette, and that's done as well. And a punchy green like arugula seems like just the right thing. And so I have that here. I've got my vinaigrette made. At the end of the day, this, as good as it's going to taste, is not a really special salad. It's a pretty rustic, basic salad. And so I'm going to leverage the quality that you find in this Prosciutto di San Daniele and sort of elevate the whole thing so that people will go back to this platter again and again and again. So let's get started with this. I'm going to add some of the squash. I don't worry too much if there's slices of garlic or even branches of thyme. For me, that sort of tells a story, a flavor story about the rustic nature of this dish. I'm going to add enough tomatoes to bring a little bit of acidity to this salad and some nice color. I would say it's entirely appropriate if these vegetables are even a little bit warm. It would not hurt anything at all. I'm going to stir in some vinaigrette. And one trick that I will share is that if you put too much vinaigrette on a salad early, what can happen is it weights everything down and it sticks together. So I dress it lightly, and if I want to add more dressing later, I'm entirely behind that. I think it makes good sense. So we'll toss this together. I'm going to put some salt and pepper into it as well. And here's a platter for the finished salad. I've got one more little garnish up my sleeve, but let's begin with the greens and the roasted vegetables. And make sure they show. You know, don't hide them. I think there's a lot of great flavor inherent in this salad. And spend a little bit of time kind of arranging things just so. It's time for this salad to sing a little bit. I have some Prosciutto di San Daniele, and what I want to do is just tent it onto this salad. You can see the fat on the outside of each slice. Don't make the mistake of trimming that off, because that is just great, great flavor. And then finally, I've got some grana padano that I want to shave just a little bit over the salad. And if you are proud of the quality of your olive oil as I am, then I would drizzle just a little bit more straight olive oil over the top. Or if you prefer a little bit of dressing. And just a sprinkle of black pepper. And this salad is ready to go to the table. So, a roasted squash salad, winter squash salad with jammy oven-dried tomatoes, Prosciutto di San Daniele, and just a little grana padano as a garnish on the top.